All right, ladies and gentlemen, here is today's review video. All right, so obviously the most important thing you can do for these videos is make sure you have SOHCAHTOA memorized or written down on your paper. It will always help you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and obviously highlight our angle. It's super important to always highlight what angle you are focusing on. Okay, it says to find the measure of the indicated angle. So we need to figure out how many degrees is this angle. Well, we know the length of this side and we know the length of this side. So we're going to go ahead and label it. We're not going to label this one. We're just going to do the 12 and then the 19. So I know that the 19, because it's opposite this right angle, is our hypotenuse. And we know this side is opposite because it's on the opposite side. And this one is adjacent because it's right next to this angle. So adjacent means next to. All right, so now we just got to figure out which of these trig functions uses adjacent and hypotenuse. Oh, hey, that would be cosine. So adjacent and hypotenuse. And so we're going to go ahead and fill it out. So I'm going to start with our cosine. We're going to just leave it theta or the angle. If you want a question mark or you can make it an x, whatever, this is just a variable. And then we're going to set it equal to the side adjacent, which is 12, over our hypotenuse, which is 19. All right, so anytime you're trying to find the angle measure, we have to do inverse cosine because we got to figure out what is that? How do we get this all by itself? You got to do the inverse. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to use orange. We're going to do the cosine inverse of each side. Sorry, I have this color, so I'm going to write it. So we're going to do the cosine inverse of cosine theta equals cosine inverse of 12 over 19. So to find the angle, you do the cosine inverse of each side. And this cosine inverse and cosine cancel each other out. And so we figure out what our theta or our angle is. And this is where you need to use the calculator and type it in. And give me a second to get that up. And I'm going to forget it's 12 over 19. Don't forget. Okay, so go to Tools, go to Scientific Calculator. And you're going to do cosine inverse. So you have to go over here to the function button, hit cosine inverse. So it has to have that little -1. And then it was 12 divided by 19. And then it does say to the nearest degree. So hopefully you can see that. We got 50.9. Put that back over here. So this was 50.9. And since it says to the nearest degree, we're going to go ahead and say, since this is 0.5 or higher, we're going to round that up. So it's going to be 51 degrees. So that is the measure of this angle. It's 51 degrees. All right, so that should help you for your next problems, the next 4. And so here is the review for solving each triangle. So anytime it asks you to solve each triangle, you're going to have to find all the angle measures and all the side lengths. So we're going to say side lengths and angle measure. So that means we need to figure out how long this is. That's our B. We need to figure out how long this is. That's your C. And we already know what A is. And then we have to figure out angle A, figure out angle B, and angle C. And so we know that angle A is 4, because it's opposite that angle. So this is going to be the length of 4. We don't know B, we don't know C. Okay, we know also the angle of A is 55 degrees. And we know angle C is 90 degrees. So now we're going to use those two to find the angle B. All right, so we know that a triangle, all three angles must add up to 180. So we're going to take 180 and we're going to subtract 90 and 55 from it. So minus 90 minus 55. We're going to subtract both of those, and we get that is 35 degrees. So we found angle B is 35 degrees. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill it in as I find things. All right, the next thing we need to do is we need to figure out the side lengths. So we know that this side is 4. We need to figure out how long B is and how long C is. So in order to do that, we're going to have to use our trig ratios. So that's the SOHCAHTOA. So I'm going to go ahead and write it on top. SOHCAHTOA. And that is very sloppy, so hopefully you guys can read it. All right, now we're going to use that, and we're going to set up our trig problem. All right, so now that we are going to try and find our side lengths, we're going to go ahead and label what's given to us. And it doesn't matter really what angle you use. You can use the 55 or the 35. I'm just going to go ahead and use this angle as my reference because I already highlighted it. And so I'm just going to go, okay, well, that 4 is the opposite side. And then you can pick either one. You can pick B or C. It does not matter. I'm going to go ahead and use C to find C because I know this is my hypotenuse. So I'm using these two. Like I said, this is not the only way you could do it. You could use and find B as well if you'd like. But I'm going to go ahead and find C. All right, so I'm going to set up my trig function. I know it's opposite and hypotenuse. So I know this is opposite and this is hypotenuse. So I'm going to use sine. So I know I'm going to focus on my sine. So I'm going to go ahead and set it up. I'm going to do sine. Always do your angle. 55 is going to be equal to opposite over hypotenuse. So we're going to do 4 over C. I'm going to go ahead and call it C. And so, or if you like, you can call it X. It doesn't matter. And hopefully you realize since C is on the denominator, we know we have to divide these things. So C is going to be the 4 divided by sine of 55. If you need me to go over all that, I can, but really you just put it under 1, you multiply, and then you got to solve for it. Just remember, if the unknown is on the bottom, you divide. If the unknown or the X is on the top, you would multiply these things. And then I already did that, luckily. And so I got my C is, so 4 divided by sine 55 is approximately 4.9. And so it does say to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it at 4.9. I think it was really 4.883. I'm going to go ahead and round that up to a 4.9. All right, so I found my C. This is 4.9. So how long is this? It's 4.9, almost 5. All right, so now we're going to figure out our B. To find your B, this is where you're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And I see I took up a lot of space over there. I wish I could move that, but I can't. So we're going to do 4 squared plus B squared. We don't know what B squared is, so I'm going to leave it B squared equals 4.9 squared. All right, so I was able to move all this, so now we're going to go ahead and finish this up. I know that 4 squared is 16. I don't know what B squared is, so I'm going to leave it. And using the calculator, I know 4.9 squared is about 24. I rounded up a little bit, or I rounded down actually. And now we need to get this B squared all by itself. So we're going to subtract 16 to each side. So we're going to get B squared equals 8. And then we're going to go ahead and do the square root of each side, because how do you get rid of a squared is you have to square root. So I'm going to square root each side. And using a calculator, I know that the square root of 8 is about 2.8. So now we found our length of B, which was 2.8. And so that's how you find all of the sides and all the angles of a right triangle. Thanks for watching me and this video. Let me know if you need help.